All right, and now I'm going to. It's thinking. All right. I feel like I should play the Jeopardy music while it's going live to Facebook.
I
Okay.
know, right?
We are live on Facebook. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to Ali Tedeschi, who I have gotten to know over the last couple of months, and I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know her and just thought she would be a fabulous person to interview on this. And she is taking time out from being outdoors and enjoying the sunshine to hop on with me tonight. So thank you for that, Ali, and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always nice to see you, as always.
So let's start with the first question that I ask everyone. Can you share a memory that brings you joy?
Absolutely. So, of course, I'm sure like anybody else, there's a million things that I could share. And most people, I think, tend to call to mind big milestones or things like that. But I'll be honest, there's something that just every now and then it'll pop into my head and it'll always bring me a smile. It was actually when my two boys were really little. They were probably about preschool, kindergarten age, and my husband and I had gone to get ice cream with them one day,
Mm-hmm.
probably just a random Saturday afternoon. And so we gave each of the boys their ice cream cones first, and it was hard ice cream. So it wasn't soft serve. So it was like nice big scoops on top.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're each standing there holding their ice creams and their ice cream cone, and they're licking them. And my older son, who was probably maybe 5 at the time, if that, he takes a big lick and the whole blob of ice cream falls
Uh-huh.
on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, oh my God. He's like, crying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And my younger son at the time, just, he could barely talk, and he reaches out and he pushes his ice cream cone towards me. He goes, Alex, do you want mine? And
Oh.
David and I were like, oh my God. Like, it was just something that left an indelible mark,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my brain and on my heart. I was just like, oh, it was so sweet.
Oh.
So unfortunately, he did hand it to my son, and my older son took a lick of that one, and the whole thing fell off.
Oh
And now they're both like, ah!
no.
But yeah, that's just always stayed with it. I mean, it just brought me joy because I was like, oh, it was just so innocent that he was willing to sacrifice his ice cream cone for his brother.
So sweet. Oh,
Yeah.
that is so sweet. Yeah. I think we probably all have those fun little like tiny memories that are a slice of time that aren't necessarily those big milestones that sometimes we remember. And there's so many with kids that you just,
Mm-hmm.
you remember that those little things that are just the sweetest parts of parenting.
Yeah,
They make it all worth it.
they totally do. They
Because
totally do.
sometimes you just go, oh, is this really worth it? And then you remember things like that, and you're like, okay, yeah, it really
There'll
is.
literally be one thing that'll happen, and it'll erase anything that have possibly could have gone wrong earlier that
Yes,
day.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what's one thing that you do regularly that brings you joy?
One thing that I do regularly that brings me joy is reading. I am an avid reader. I love to read. To me, it's It's just my favorite thing that I know I'm going to look forward to do at the end of the day, or sometimes it's at the beginning of the day, a lot of times on the weekend. First thing in the morning, I'll grab a cup of coffee and I'll go sit outside on my deck and read. I just love it. It doesn't matter if it's fiction, nonfiction. It's just such an escape for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like no matter what it is that I'm reading, even if it is fiction or something light, I still always come away learning something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always feel more full after
Mm.
I've been able to read.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, that's one of my things that definitely brings me joy, that I do pretty much every single day. Yeah.
So what are you reading right now?
Right now I'm just finishing up Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I love it,
Ah,
love it, love
good.
it, love it, love it. Usually I read a book every 2 weeks, but
Uh-huh.
this happened to be the last book I had before we kind of, before the world kind of
Shut down.
closed.
Yeah.
And so I am also a saver in that I'll ration things out if I really love something. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, I can't go to the library, and I'm a library goer. I don't buy
Mm-hmm.
books.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, oh my gosh, I can't go to the library. I'm going to and I don't think I was intentionally doing it at one point, but I still have this book, and there's no way it would ever take me this long to read a book. But I
Uh-huh.
think I've just been saving it and
Yeah.
savoring it and
Yeah.
just kind of reading a couple of pages each day. And I just don't want it to end, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost at the end. So, and I actually have to pick a new book for the book club that I'm in. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I offer both.
interesting.
Yeah.
So was this for book club or
Nope.
was it
No,
just
this
for
was just
fun?
on my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, do you have a favorite genre that you usually go towards?
Yeah. I love historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually, I for some reason, I end up picking pieces that are during wartime. I
Mm-hmm.
love World War II. I know that sounds kind of down, uh, but
You
I
love
do
that
like that.
era.
I love that era. Vietnam as well, Civil War. Uh, Not so much Revolutionary War period, but yeah, definitely times of strife. I don't know what that
Oh,
says about me, but
well, that's interesting. You were like preparing for all of this craziness that's
I
going
guess
on in
so.
the world by your reading
Guess
choices.
so.
I actually love my favorite genre is dystopian young adults.
Oh
So
boy.
I'm right
Okay.
there with you with the kind of downer,
Yeah.
I love yeah, like the whole Mockingjay series, Hunger Games, right up my alley. So
Mhm.
yeah. So I get it. um how did do you remember, actually I shouldn't say how did you get started, but do you remember getting started reading? Like do you remember that part of your life and why
Yeah.
when you fell in love with it?
Yeah, I actually have two specific memories. One was I actually remember, this sounds crazy, but I actually remember when it finally clicked in my brain and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm reading. I know how to read now. And I was at
Oh.
home. I remember being at home
Mm-hmm.
and I had a Curious George book, and I would walk around with it all the time because for some reason this was the one book I was determined that I was going to learn to read.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I remember it clicking, and I think I was just kind of stunned. I was like, I think I know how to read now. Like it
Oh,
was just a strange feeling.
yeah.
Um, but my mom really fostered that when I was little, along with my brother and my sister, the three of us. She would take us to the library all the time, and we would go to story hour, with other preschool age kids.
Mm-hmm.
And every summer when we were going through elementary school, junior high, she always had us participate in the different summer reading programs.
Mm-hmm.
and we loved them. Like, we loved the different challenges, and it was like, who was going to beat who and who was going to read the most books. And we would actually spend time at our summer home, and where we were, she would sign us up for the summer reading program there.
Mm-hmm.
The head librarian actually told her, I guess maybe a few years down the line, that their summer census for library activity, as far as books coming and going from the library, would go, their yearly census, I should say, it would have an uptick in the summer, because we were there so much, reading so many books. It was crazy. Like, we would walk out of there with stacks, and we were there once a week. But
Yeah.
yeah, they said the census would go up in the summer when we were there.
That's really funny.
Anybody watching this is like, oh yeah, I remember you were in but I've always
So
loved it.
my mom fostered my love of reading by, this is really funny. So I hated doing chores when I was little, and I still kind of hate doing chores and cleaning. I know some people love that. Maybe I'll get somebody on here at some point who says they love to clean. I don't know. But my mother would let me, instead of doing the dishes in the evening, read to her. And so I would sit and read a book in the kitchen to my mom out loud, like as a teenager. And she'll still remember, like, oh, you read that to me when you were in high school. And I remember when I was in labor with my daughter, I went through a whole Stephen King phase. So I read her a bunch of Stephen King books. So she came out to to be in the hospital with me when I was in labor with Diane. And she brought Christine for me to read to me while I was in labor with Diane. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I think it's really funny that that's how my mom encouraged me. I mean, I always liked to read, so I wasn't one of those hesitant readers, but it was really cute that my mom was like, okay, if you read to me while I do dishes, you don't have to do the dishes. And I thought that was a pretty great deal.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's fantastic.
So what is one tip that you can share about how you embrace joy that you think others can learn from?
So I would say, the one thing I would say is, I make it a point, either once or twice a day, just to take a few minutes to think about what I'm grateful for, and then that brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on around us right now, and just in general,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's important that sometimes you kind of have to work at it. Like, you have to make it a practice, and there are better days than others, but when you just take that few minutes to remember that there are things in this world that, are irreplaceable, and those are the things that bring you joy. It's just important to remind yourself of those every single day,
So Ali has not been a part of this group. So this is being streamed to Joy is Everywhere on Facebook. But when I first started the group, we started a gratitude practice. And so there's a gratitude journal in the group. So now that you're in, every evening, I post the date and ask people what they're grateful for. And it's a wonderful practice to sort of, not only to remember what you're grateful for, but also I love seeing what other people are grateful for every day. And sometimes, sometimes it's something teeny tiny, and sometimes it's something big, and it's wonderful to see other people's gratitude as well. So I'm thrilled that you said that. And now that you're part of the group, you can participate in that gratitude practice with us.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's so true. Like, when you sometimes hear what other people are grateful for, all of a sudden, sometimes it'll spark a little something in your head, and you're like, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. Like, I'm grateful for that too. Sometimes you don't think of everything all of the time.
Right.
But it's nice to hear what other people say, and because sometimes you think of it, oh yeah, no, absolutely, me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so the last question that I always ask everyone is, how do you silence negativity and focus on keeping a sense of joy?
Mm. Well, obviously that's been very hard the past few months, I think for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, for myself, this is something that I've always done. I limit the amount of news and media that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
And while, I could say, oh, ignorance is bliss, I'm not unaware of what's going on, but I definitely limit it because I know how it makes me feel. And they're never good feelings, let's put it
No,
that way. So
no.
I definitely limit that. Um, the other thing I've done, and really this has only come up in the past few months, is I've removed myself from certain social media contacts or groups that were not positive. It was just more about the woe is me, look at all we've lost, look at all that went wrong, and or people that constantly post negative things.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly recognize that there have been a lot of hardships for folks and they need some sort of they need help or support or guidance, or they need to take solace in something. But and not that I don't want to be that person, but I am such an empathetic person that I absorb so much of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to know what is a healthy distance for me or
Mm-hmm.
separation.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of Facebook groups I actually removed myself from that I couldn't be a part of anymore because it wasn't about solving a problem anymore. It was about complaining about a problem.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would
Setting
say,
boundaries, setting boundaries for
yeah,
yourself is
exactly.
super important. Yeah.
Exactly. And like the other question that you asked me, the other thing I do is I do take time out of each day to think about the things that I'm grateful for. And I
Mhm.
feel like that combats the negativity,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do like on Facebook the that you can, if you have a particular person who you still want to remain connected with, but you just can't keep looking at, like, it upsets you to look at what they're posting, you can do that
Hmm.
little snooze for 30 days. So if you're just like, I just need a little break,
Yeah,
you can
I
do
saw
that.
that and I was like, "Oh, a snooze. That's interesting."
Yes. Yeah, you can take a little nap and
Yeah, yeah.
wake up when things are better. And then yeah, I
Right.
also love that you can change notification settings for groups so that you can decide how much of that you're going to see.
Yeah.
So that if there's a group that you're like, I really want to remain in this group, but I don't need to necessarily see everything that gets posted,
Right.
or I only want to see important things that get posted.
Right.
I can do that. I think that can be
Mhm.
really helpful. Just
Yeah.
understanding social media settings sometimes can be the difference between your sanity and, feeling like,
It's true.
oh,
It's true. Because you can drown in it, you
right.
know.
And we, I think, especially when you own a business that it's important to stay on social media and have a social media
Mhm.
presence. It's good to make sure that you're sort of setting those boundaries for yourself.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having you.
Thank you.
Ali, I'm just going to mention to the people watching, Ali has a business where she does organizing for people, and she can do it virtually. So you can do a Zoom with people. And the wonderful picture that I posted when I posted the sort of PR for tonight was while Ali was organizing. And I just love how your face was just so lit up organizing,
I
because
know, it boggles most people's mind why I would love to do that, but I absolutely love it. And yes, that was a picture from my first virtual session when all of this happened. And I found that I was having just as much fun virtually as I was, in person with folks. So, yeah.
So if anybody wants your information for your business, I'd love for you to post that underneath just in
Okay.
case they are curious about that.
Sure.
And then I am going to post a book suggestion for your book group because a guy that I went to high school with wrote a historical fiction book that I
Ooh,
think you might find interesting. And some
awesome.
of it is set in my hometown, which is really cool. So
That's so cool. Yes. Thank you very much. I
uh,
appreciate that.
sure. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Have a great night, everybody. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.